technology can help you, but my dad would always say that if you need navigation to get to drive home, then you don't know how to get home. And so my dad never needed robotics or navigation, but now with New York City traffic and with Bombay traffic, I think using Waze or other technologies is always a good idea because you can get home a different way every single time. So here are my disclosures. I will be talking about a relationship I have with certain companies. So we're going to talk about new frontiers in needle opening wedge osteotomies. I'm going to talk on some cases and show a video. I really think the use of patient-specific jigs and guides will revolutionize the number, safety, and accuracy of osteotomy. Osteotomy has always been very popular in Asia. I'd say the Asian knee is different. It has got more proximal tibia vera, and that's why knee arthroplasty is so common in India. Just like the proximal femur is different in the Asian patient. It's much more of a circular head, so hip arthritis is less, but knee arthritis is more. So osteotomy has certainly a big role in the Asian market. So why do I think patient-specific jigs and implants will be superior than traditional osteotomy? Well, we can really do advanced digital templating. So, the Miniachi technique is great, but drawing a lot of lines I used to do it on paper, and it's very labor intensive. So we can do virtual osteotomies. We can create a very reproducible technique, which really then gets you safety. And then you have improved procedural workflow to make it a much more efficient operation. And then we're talking about advanced osteotomy. Daniel had a very elegant talk about the coronal correction, but we can't forget about the sagittal correction at the same time. So using advanced templating techniques to manipulate slope. So here's how do we do advanced digital templating? Well, it's 2D to 3D technology. It's getting x-rays and superimposing the x-rays with a CAT scan. So we can really get accurate templating. So, how do we, it's really complex algorithm to identify the location of the cora. And Daniel did a very excellent job, but you can also see where the cora is, and it's really better accuracy when you have 2D to 3D planning. So this is advanced digital templating. You have 3D models that are based off your long leg cassette. So it's superimposing the CAT scan and the x-rays. And then from there, this is incorporating weight bearing because you have a bony overlay of the two technologies. So this is, you can eventually start doing multiple corrections in multiple planes, not only a coronal correction, but a sagittal correction. You can also do, in this scenario, you can do a double osteotomy correction. So it really gives you a lot of tools and a lot of information. And, the thing with improved technology, you have to really know where you want to go and realize also that your traditional analysis using just x-rays, there is a little bit of a learning curve to understand how CT technology can be slightly different in terms of how you define your goal of your correction. But this is an example of doing a double level osteotomy and how you can adjust your Fujisawa's point to where you really want to put it. So what about, patient-specific, we talk about templating, but now we're talking about patient-specific jigs and patient-specific implants. These are anatomically contoured plates, so we have much smaller plates with definitely rigid fixation and locking screw technology, and you have your screw size and everything has all been preoperatively planned, so it's really efficient, and the plates are really contoured to the bone, and whether they are contoured plates or patient-specific plates, they are superior than just off-the-shelf implants. So what do I think about this? You have streamlined instrumentation, you have a simple workflow, and then you have these PSI guides that fit to the bone for really now imposing safety. You can do smaller exposures. You don't have to put big jigs in the back of the knee. I'm still a fan of putting a jig in the back of your knee. This technology uses calibrated drill bits, so it doesn't cook the bone. So you need much less fluoro time. And my healing rates with a drill bit technology versus saw technology is significantly improved. So you have more safety in terms of your neurovascular structure, you have less fluoro time, and you have better healing time because it's drill bit technology, not saw technology. So I always call this is kind of high tibial osteotomy or DFO or osteotomy in a box. It's really streamlined and it makes you have a very efficient workflow. And, when I was a resident, an osteotomy was a big deal operation with a lot of x-ray and a lot of, paper. Now it's with a computer and a PSA guide. And you can actually, in this scenario, I can personalize my fixation to what I want, where I want to put the plate. Am I a medial plater? Am I an anterolateral plater? Am I working around old hardware? Am I working around an ACL tunnel? I can really contour my fixation to what I need to do. So the last level of this future of osteotomy to me is the sagittal plane. And we've all done, I would say, bad osteotomies where we've iatrogenically increased slope or decreased slope. And now we're really focusing on slope. So I've done a lot of work here and some research to say what's the best way that I can manipulate slope. And so we did a study where we did 10 virtual osteotomies, and we looked at all different variables of where you want to get the hinge axis. What's the ideal hinge axis for a slope-reducing osteotomy? This paper was published in Arthroscopy, and basically a small anterolateral hinge that's laterally based, proximal, distal anterior to proximal posterior, aka an internally rotated of the hinge axis, will give you the best way to manipulate slope. So the bottom line is a small anterolateral hinge, which makes sense, which really destabilizes the osteotomy, is the best way to manipulate slope. This is really hard to do without, I'd say, PSI technology. I did it before, and you have to sometimes break your lateral cortex posteriorly to get this small anterolateral hinge. So here's another way of looking at it. We also want to say, like, how do I get this anterolateral hinge based off various different coronal corrections? This is a second study that we just published. And basically what we found out, with smaller corrections, you have to have a really small anterolateral hinge. For bigger corrections, 15 degrees, you can have a more consistent anterolateral hinge. So your ability to adjust the sagittal plane depends on how much you're adjusting the coronal plane. And it's a lot of drawing lines and signs. So I'm just going to talk about some cases, and this is really the evolution of my osteotomy practice. This was I did this guy maybe 10 or 15 years ago. He was a 45-year-old. He was an engineer. He status post meniscectomy. He was in varus, and he had medial knee pain. And you can see, this is, as Daniel, is a kind of a chip shot because going through the medial compartment. You can see early OA on his MRI, and he had proximal tibia vera. So we did a relatively small correction, high tibial osteotomy with a TomoFix plate. It's a great plate. I've used it for many years, and this guy did very well, and I corrected him to the lateral spine. So just short of future sideways point. I don't like to overcorrect either. But then you get to more complex cases. This is a case I did maybe 2 years ago. A 37-year-old female who had multiple surgeries. She had a failed ACL BTB, a failed revision, a failed ALL. We're going to talk more about the lateral side. And now she comes in with pain instability, slope around 20 degrees, medially OA, and a failed ACL. All these patients, as Daniel pointed out, you got to always think, is it pain or instability? And sometimes it's both. In her case, it was both. So what we did a PSI guide, and where we can dial in the coronal correction. Her MPT was 82, so I wanted about a 9-degree correction coronally. Her slope was about 81, and I wanted to dial in about a 7-degree correction sagittally. So this is what it was. So we reduced her slope, and although she still has a low, her Lockman went from a 2++ to, I'd say, a 1+, and her pivot went from a 2+, maybe almost a 3+, to a 1+ to maybe a 1.5. But she never had her ACL revised, and she likes her knee just by correcting her slope and her coronal alignment. So in conclusion, I think osteotomy is biomechanically sound. It maintains high function. It's versatile. It's durable. I think the future will be for complex osteotomies using more modern technology, and patient-specific, guides and implants are truly the future. I really think, TomoFix and standard osteotomy can work, but as we get more complicated, we'll be more reliant on virtual templating, especially for more complicated osteotomies. So this is quickly, I'm going to just show a small little video. I don't know if it's going to run. This was a 35-year-old patient with a chronic medial knee pain. She had a BTB in 2013 and a radical meniscectomy. She's failed conservative measurements, treatments. You can see that she has she had a 2A Lockman, so she had a good endpoint. She had good range of motion. She had correctable varus in her knee. and no obvious instability. Her pictures are going to show here. You can see she's got a neo osteophyte, young lady, and she's in a little bit of varus. And she actually, and about, her MBTA was about 81. So in this case, I did an OC allograft, and which was in the early part of the video. And this is now my technique of doing a opening wedge tibial osteotomy. It's actually always a little more complicated whenever you've had a prior BTB because there's more scar. I always identify the PES. I used to keep the PES. Now I release it. I just think it just gets in your way, and it helps you to get a more aggressive medial release. The PES is a great landmark for where you want to start your osteotomy. And then you do a very extensive MCL release. Balancing the MCL with an osteotomy is the key to this operation, just like balancing the MCL for a total knee. And once you get this exposure of the proximal medial tibia and you get a retractor around the back, you also get a retractor in front of the patellar tendon. You place the PSA guide on, and with these drills in the right position, it's all pre-calibrated to your height relative to the plateau and relative to the tubercle. Once this is rigidly fixed, you want to just, you take one quick x-ray to confirm where you are. There's a calibrated box in there to open the wedge. I'm confirming my plane of my osteotomy right there with the x-ray. And then this is the drill bit sleeve. At this point, I almost can leave the room and let the residents, do the rest of the case, because you can't hurt the neurovascular structures because these are all calibrated. And, you can see the different depths here. And you can see there's no saw, you're not cooking the bone. And then you finish it with an osteotome. And then you do the rest of your release. And then that's when you cut the box. And then this is the final plate construct. So you can see that we've, I don't know if you can see the OC allograft. We did a coronal correction. The screws are preoperatively planned to miss the middle screw. So I didn't have to take that middle screw out. I used to have to take that middle screw out, which would futz around for another 20 minutes. So my screws were designed to go around the interference screw, and she's done very well. So in conclusion, I always want to say osteotomy, as we heard before, is all about planning. And, the eyes only see what the mind knows. So that's my favorite line of my father. So on that point, I will end it there.